Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to all global delegates and coaches. Once again, welcome to ICF India Conclave 2021, Coaching for Growth ITOS. At the outset, I want to thank once again all the sponsors and partners who have supported this conclave with a big heart. If there is one topic which touches all the ITOS elements in our theme, this is the one. Today, our topic is how teams transform, perform, and reform using coaching. This is a very apt topic for business world and the sports world. So how does it relate with the ethos? If the individuals get transformed, they can perform as an individual, but also a teams. And when the teams perform, they actually reform the organization they are working. Also, they can reform the system they are working. I could see one best example in the sports world, which happened in this manner. When we won the 1983 World Cup, when the team transformed and performed, you could see the cricket got reformed in India. And in the business world, I could remember how the Infosys and the TCS started working as a small team and started performing during the time in the computer field. And you saw how it got reformed in the India. There are many, many examples. Byju's is a classical example which on the nowadays. With this, I just want to introduce a brief about this session. Teamwork and performance is a sacrosanct in corporate and sport environment. Ingredients of high-performing teams includes aligning towards goal, remaining innovative, and adapting quickly to internal and external changes. Team coaching explores the subsurface dynamics of individual subgroups that affect team performance. In this session, we have a very excellent panel coming from the area of expertise of business leadership, coaching, as well as sports team coaching and the management of it. And it is going to enlighten how coach can move from I to we, individuals creating capable teams and bring about more trust connection and address how to handle team dynamics at various scenarios. So I am proud, very happy to announce the panel comprising of Marco Bushman, Nilesh Kulkarni, and Snehal. Welcome you all for this excellent topic. So I would like to start with introducing Marco Bushman, who is a managing partner of Curious. Marco Bushman is an internationally recognized leadership expert, master certified team and executive coach, international facilitator, inspirational speaker, and the best-seller author for the Connection Quotient. He supported thousands of leaders, managers, and teams on strategic issues and their personal development, which led to more fulfillment and business impact and growth in their personal lives. He's particularly interested in leadership, the power of connection, and creating best performance cultures where the focus on results and productivity are combined with an atmosphere of trust, respect, and an appreciation of differences. His style can be described as optimistic, decisive, empathetic, passionate, and inspirational. Welcome, Marco, for this panel, and really, really appreciate your time for this.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation and your kind words.
Thanks. Now, let me introduce the next panelist, Nilesh Kulkarni, who is a former Indian cricketer, left-arm spinner. We all know him. He's now a founder and director of International Institute of Sports Management. He is the first Indian to take a wicket in his first ball in the Test cricket. Represented India for 4 years. He also represented Mumbai cricket team for 17 years. He was awarded the Rashtriya Khel Protsahan Puraskar by Government of India. He is a member of Cricket Improvement Committee, an active member of Directorate of Sports and Youth Services, Government of Maharashtra. Nilesh is an active member of National Sports Education Board Committee, New Delhi. He is a founder of India's first professional sports management institute to offer UG and PG programs in collaboration with Mumbai University. Welcome, Nilesh Kulkarni. We are very, very honored to have you in this panel.
Thank you very much for this wonderful introduction, and it's been a pleasure to be on this panel.
Yeah, now we come to our fantastic moderator, Snehal Kole. Snehal Kole is a very young, dynamic, energetic person whom I have interacted. And he is a founder and CEO of Evolve Business Consulting, a professional with over 16 years of experience in business consulting, consultative selling, and coaching. He has trained over 25,000 professionals across sectors in the area of leadership, sales, and behavior skills. He is certified facilitator in situational leadership, situational coaching, NLP, and MBTI. He is also a strategic advisor to Mr. Saurav Ganguly, who is a current BCCI president, for his brand endorsements. Additionally, he serves as a mentor to the startups and visiting faculty in the institute affiliated with Mumbai University and sports management. Equally at ease in the boardroom and in the playing field, Snehal has led impactful coaching sessions for CXOs with excellence results. Over to you, Snehal. Welcome you for this moderation, what you call as a moderation position you are taking in this panel. And over to you, Snehal.
Thank you so much, Dr. Arvindan. Thanks a lot. And such words sounds like music to the ears when someone else has to say this. And welcome all of you who have taken time out on a Sunday evening from the hectic week that you would have had. And I'm sure you had different choices to spend the evening in a particular manner. But all those people who have gathered over here to hear Nilesh Kulkarni and Marco Busman. So before we begin, allow me, on behalf of the entire ICF community, to wish Marco a very happy birthday to begin with. Okay.
Happy
Thank
birthday,
you.
Marco.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And thanks, Marco, for spending your birthday with us. And this is going to be a remembering moment. I'm very sure about that.
For sure. Thank you.
Great. So once again, I'm honored to be part of this elite panel with Nilesh and Marco together. And now that we're together over here, let's see what best we can create for this entire community who is listening to us, which is in the form of coaches, in the form of professionals, and trainees and learners. So the last 2 days, enough has been spoken and discussed about coaching from an individual context. And this is a moment where we would actually want to understand, like, how does coaching change from a team context? And this question I'm going to leave to both of you in your personal capacity to share your experiences, okay, because you both have had experiences of dealing with individuals and both have done enough work as far as coaching teams. So what kind of differentiators do you experience first? Nilesh, allow me to give this chance to Marco as he's the birthday boy today.
Absolutely.
Over to you, Marco.
Okay, thank you so much. And I think it's a really powerful and an important question. And actually, also I've also been training many individual coaches globally as well as team coaches, and always this was one of the questions that always came up as well. And those are actually also, and we really need to understand, it's two different professions. If you look at the individual coaching, you're really working with the person in all of its elements. You go all in, you go quite deep with them. Whereas when you work with a team, we always say you work with the system. And one of the big mistakes that I see some excellent coaches make, some individual coaches, when they start coaching the team and the system, they actually start doing individual coaching within a team setting. And that actually will have an impact. It will have an impact on the trust. It will have an impact on the way the people show up. And if you just really look at when I talk about the working with the system, and it's really working the system, it's more about making the people aware about how do the people interact? How do they work together? How do they actually give each other space to actually explore a certain topic? How they give each other feedback and so on. So it's really more about the culture, the way they interact, the whole system that you work with. So that is the short answer. So Nadish, I'm also curious then for you, what would be your short answer here?
Well, I would probably put a different analogy in this part, coming from sports background. As a leadership role, as a coach or as a mentor or as a manager, there are different dimensions and perspectives, because end of the day, the result oriented perspective comes into play. And when you're leading a team, there are two different analogies which I want to just share it for your consideration as well. One, obviously, because I played cricket, I'm using cricket analogy. A coach takes a different seat because the captain is the lead calling the shots. But make no mistake, the importance of coach aligning all the thoughts, designing strategies, coming up with the complete plan of action which customize or suits, comforting the players, managing the players into their different challenging situations plays a different role. But you flip the coin and put that similar analogy into football, basketball, baseball, hockey. A manager slash coach in that takes a leadership role. He calls the shot. Captain only performs on the field. So then he or she is responsible not only to design the strategy but drive it through as well. A strategic call of sending a right player at the right time also makes a significant impact in the outcome of that particular performance. So you put the same analogy into your workplace. The roles who are at a leadership role as a coach needs to define, like Marco mentioned, there is a thin line. How do you cross it? By performing or empowering. How you define that line determines a role of a coach or a leadership or a leader who will actually bring the best out of individual for the benefit of the organization. And this is exactly what sport offers you, because I always say that in sports, when you're live, we don't have retakes. So all the preparation what you do is pre-hand and during not during the course of that.
Fantastic. So, what I
Sorry.
get from this particular piece, Marco and Nilesh, is different perspectives, and that's what I guess we all are here right now. And yeah, Nilesh, you are seen and you are heard as well. Okay, just in case uh,
Yeah, I think there was some
lag.
disturbance. I just could not hear you.
Okay, am I audible to you now?
Yeah, you are.
Great. Yeah. So what I get from both of your inputs over here is different perspectives. And as Marco started the conversation, where he mentioned that the coach's role is much different in a team context than coaching an individual. And that line that is drawn, because in a team context, a lot of people make a challenge, or they make this error, which is start getting into coaching individuals than the team as a whole. And very nicely mentioned that they're two different professions. And the same aspect, I guess Nilesh also picked it up, and he gave this context from different sports. Okay, where while most of us may look team sports in the same lens, but a great analogy of how even cricket has a different role for a coach, and as compared to let's say football, hockey, where the manager as a coach has a different role. And what I pick up from Nilesh's conversation over here is, in certain team sports, the coach also has a strategic role to play. Okay, and in this particular strategic role, the coach ends up also making certain calls on the field live at that point in time. Yeah, so from that context, aligning with the captain and leading along with the captain for the particular result becomes extremely important. Now, with these different inputs, let's try to dwell a little more. If where I would like to ask Nilesh specifically, because most of your time and career was spent in playing cricket as a sport. Okay, right from the days where you got coached as an individual, uh, from there the transition where you started representing clubs and Mumbai Cricket Association, where I guess you had an exposure of a professional coach, coaching Mumbai Cricket, a team, and from there making the transition to the national level. So, how does the role of a coach change in these three platforms?
Uh, Tremendous transition. I was lucky to get a person like Mr. Frank Tyson, who mentored, guided, empowered, and handheld me into many situations. Allowing me to a excel, b understand, and c the most important thing is realize what needs to be done as a young person, so that he allowed me to make mistakes, but he made sure that he gives me two or three different options for my consideration, which helped me understand the situation far better. And you put the same analogy into your workplace, things actually work out a lot differently. So that was my initial phase when I actually went on a first class and then the international level. The coaching part took a backseat, The reason why I'm saying this, that because you are fully equipped with the skills part. What it requires is empowering decision making ability, taking a right decision at the right time. Then the coaches allowed me, the discussion used to happen that what's your strategy going to be? How do you intend to approach this particular series or the match or that particular moment? And the discussion would revolve more on these points, which help me grow better, which help me understand and analyze those situations far more comprehensively, only because I was the decision maker in that particular moment, which helped me assess, analyze, and then apply, which worked really in my favor. And when I
Yeah.
finished my playing days, the same analogy, I started applying that into my workplace. Hopefully, the conducive environment when you play sport helps you overcome all these smaller, finer points of getting irritated, frustrated, and not to think about the objective of that particular moment or for that task which is assigned to you. We tend to
Yeah.
get deviated from that particular thought. So by playing sport, the influence of the coaches helped me analyze, understand, and assess all these areas for my better performance, which eventually complemented the team performance as well.
Yeah, and if I may add to that, Nilesh, because I like that answer, and you started the question saying, what's the difference between individual and team coaching? But there's also similarities, and I think where you're pointing, Nilesh, is also the similarity. As a coach, we're not there to advise, to give them like, this is what you need to do. I'm the head, you're the hands, now go do it. But we are here to listen, to raise questions, to challenge, to support, in order for the individual or for the team to make their own decisions. And that's, we listen to not to fix, but we listen to understand and to reflect and to hold up the mirror to the other person, so that the individual or the team can make their own choices. And that's a big similarity with the individual coaching, I would say.
Absolutely. And just to add what Marco is saying, it's beautifully defined by someone. The meaning of team is together everyone achieves more.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and if I may continue on that as well. So here's also a perspective that I would like to give. So also when you look at teams, I always say you have to look through two lenses at your teams, at the individual as well, but also at the organization. The first one is more coming from the rational,
Right.
because every team, every function, every individual, they exist to produce results. If you want to have results, you should have some sort of clear vision where you want to go. You should have some sort of strategy, year plans. You have tasks, roles, responsibilities. What's your position in the field? What's your role? You also have to make decision processes and so on. It's all rational, and it's important in order to achieve results. So that's the first angle. The second angle is also, if you look at teams, organizations, and functions, like you and me, it's humans. So the first one, I would say, that's the human doing part. So that's the human doing in order to get results. And the second lens is the human being part. Because if you have individuals and people, you also get dynamics. You get actually people dynamics. And then we start talking about, do we trust each other? Do we also say yes to diversity? You have a different background and you say something that I don't like. Now, how will I respond to it? So this is where we start to really talk about also, how do we celebrate? How do we challenge? How do we give each other feedback? How do we say yes to diversity and active inclusion and so on? And as a coach, as a team coach, you always focus on both. You focus both on the results side as well as the individual sides. Now, if I start with a team, and then the question is where to start. Do you initially start with the functional side or the relational side, the IQ or the EQ? And what I say, I believe in that the most important way you start is first in the relationship. Because like you and me, if we trust each other, if we are willing to speak about truth, if we are willing to give back what I see, what I feel, what I sense, and where I agree or disagree, if I feel that psychological safe space to speak up my truth, then you can really start talking about now how to get better and how to perform even better and how to create different results. So for me, looking at the two lenses, although they are absolutely equal, you need to focus on both. I would also say the starting point for me always starts with more the relational question.
Fantastic, Marco. And in fact, I can't agree more on this, where you have also specifically mentioned uh, the difference between a team and a group, because many occasions what happens is when organizations and institutes appoint coaches, okay,
Yeah.
thinking that it is a team who is
Mm.
supposed to be transformed, but
Mhm.
there's a stage before that where do they even qualify as a team, or is it just a group of people?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, would you like to share some thoughts on the difference between a group and a team, and then the coach's role, how exactly it moves at a transformational level?
Yeah. So Niles, do you, because I just gave an extensive answer, do you want to go first here?
I'm happy to do that. I think there were two thoughts in this particular transformation phase, because communication, a lot of people use this word loosely, but in my opinion, communicating it to a leader has a different approach, and then the communicating with the team member, or two levels or one level below you, have a different approach. As a leader, how do you empower that determines the outcome of the entire process, in terms of communicating it to your trusting your member, making sure the empowerment happens in the right way for your leadership group, or the senior management, or the top management, makes a good statement for you if you are able to convince them the way you want to communicate and address a particular point. Because a lot of times I have experienced, especially on the playing arena, sporting engagement in a team environment, people are afraid to share an opinion which is very, very critical and relevant at that particular moment, because he or she, that person, is played probably 100 test match. How can I approach him and tell him that this is going wrong? You can find a way to communicate, to make sure that your point is presented or communicated in the right manner. The result definitely has a consideration, because the top leader, if he or she is not a good listener, good luck. But if they're a good listener, they will definitely consider your suggestion, because they live in the present. And the moment you start living in the present, you are open for ideas, suggestions, which helps grow not only individually but as a group. And that differentiator needs to be brought in. But when you are driving a team forward as a leader at the mid-level manager level, the objective is that you are answerable and accountable for it. So from a group to a team, the differentiator needs to be achieved in this analogy, which we actually practiced on the field. Because then sometimes you have to take that strong hard decision to convince people, no, this is not the right approach, this is how you need to think, and open your horizon for a consideration which gives you a better result from that individual. Because I personally feel most of the time, and many of times I've encountered that a lot of people have a fear of failure. So they have a fear of approaching in this manner, and then the outcome obviously has a different challenge. So I personally differentiate a group and a team perspective in this manner. A lot of people believe in staying in a group without voicing their opinion, but that should never be the objective.
Yeah. Yeah, and if I may build on it, also when
Please.
you bring in the listening piece, it's so tremendous important that you're willing to listen to understand rather than listening to respond or listening to fix. Um, Also, when you talk about the leader, as a leader, even if someone brings in a different perspective, can you still appreciate it? Although you might have an opinion around it, you might have, a complete opposite thought. You can still always accept and acknowledge the person for sharing his point of view. And actually, that's also what the research has shown. If you talk about psychological safety, it's one of the ways in order to start building psychological safety, not only to invite each and everyone to speak up, but also to say yes to whatever they say, although you might agree or disagree. And secondly, what you also said, it's so tremendously important. As a leader, you're there in a role, and your role is also to take the team forward. So therefore, you need to make the tough decisions, and that sometimes also create a little bit of stress and a little bit of conflict. Now, if you look at a group of people, most groups, when they are encountered with conflict, they start looking for a way to go around it, or it actually explodes in the face, and then you get subgroups and so on, and then the whole system starts falling apart. Whereas a team has actually learned that if there's a conflict, that they say, now rather than run away from it, let's go into it. Let's have that fierce and courageous conversation with each other, where we can actually start looking for what's happening here. And what I see is that one of the differentiators that a group, what you can see when they have emerged into a team, it's like a different phase is how do they deal with the conflicts? And that's where you really start noticing the difference.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for these insightful views about telling us the difference between the group and the team and what role
Yeah.
specifically has to be played. And what I pick from over here from this particular part of the conversation is the role of communication, the role of creating psychological safety, like removing the fear of failure, and the creating an ability to dealing with conflict. Because when there are different sets of people, when there are different personalities, different brains, and different point of views, there are going to be conflicting views, or there are going to be difference in points. And what kind of an environment does a coach help in creating within such kind of groups and teams, such that it helps them move to the next level? This is where I have one more question to both of you. So does the role of a coach evolve or change depending upon the goal that the team has to achieve?
I would say I'm not sure if it really changes, although the focus might be different. Because, you know, when the first time when you enter the stage as a coach, you know, it's also for the team, it's you're unknown to them. And you also want to, I always say, I want to seduce them into becoming more open and transparent and to go into the whatever the topic is that we need to discuss. So in that phase, of course, you know, I need to live up to my standards. I need to walk the talk. If I expect the team to open up, to be vulnerable, I should also enter the stage being vulnerable myself, to be willing to be transparent, to speak of the truth, and even sometimes the hard truth. And what I always tell them is also like, you know, whatever I'm going to say, you can count on it. It's correct. It's true. Yet it's my truth. It's not the ultimate truth. And that's what I also expect from you as well. So in that stage, that's really building the relationship. Then we start working also within the team dynamics to actually invite them, to actually create a little bit of like, you know, who are you? Who am I? And this is also one of the things that I've learned. I love to invite people also sharing more personal stories, because some teams, they are so focused on results in the business. Like, that's my target, that's my KPI, you know, and whatever we do, we go for it. That's absolutely fantastic. But let's also focus on the relationship. And here's a simple exercise that I love in the initial phase when I start working with teams. I always ask them, so think about what's the best team that you have been part of. It could be the Indian cricket team. It could be a business team. It could be your current team. It could be a team from the past. It could be a group of volunteers who actually work together as a team. But if you think about those best teams, and you think about what are the attributes that were present in those best teams that were less present or not present within the, you know, the mediocre teams that you've been part of, or the low performing teams. So what's the difference? And I ask them, so what are the attributes? Then they start ventilating the attributes, and I start writing them down. And I write them down on the left-hand side or on the right-hand side, whatever they call. I just listen to them and I put it on one of the both sides. And then at some point, you know, you see a list. And I ask them, so what's the difference between the left-hand side and the right-hand side? And this is what I do. I put all the elements which are more rational, like we have a common goal, you know, there's also, we understand the rules, you know, all that kind of stuff. I put it on the left-hand side, and I put on the right-hand side all the more the relational elements. And then they start seeing there's a difference indeed between those two, the left-hand side and the right-hand side. But then there you come to the really beautiful part of it. What I've always seen, and I've done this exercise with thousands of people, with teams in the Netherlands, in Europe, in India, all over the world. And it's always the same. The list with the attributes that are more rational, more functional, more IQ related on the left-hand side is always smaller than the list on the right-hand side, which is more EQ, relational. And that's also what I see. And typically it's like 1/3 of the elements are on the left-hand side and 2/3 are on the right-hand side. And then I ask them, so what do you see? What do you notice? What does it mean? And this is also where they start noticing and start understanding, like, if we really work on the relationship, you know, in those teams, there was humor, you know, there was laughter. We were there, you know, no matter what. and you really, they get that sense like, gosh, it's in the relation between you and me. That's what is outperforms the average teams. Then we can start talking. Now let's also look at your own team. How are you doing on that element?
Well, if I can just extend the thought of what Marco just shared, when I was playing a team sport and when I was a captain of the team, one of the initiatives I actively undertook, if as a team leader, because I was a captain of the team, if I'm leading the team, if my team member fail in that particular role, to go and address the media, I will take that leadership role to make sure he feels comfortable in a difficult situation, so that I allow him to settle down with the disappointment of that particular target or a task which is assigned to him. But as a leader, I will take the entire onus on me to make sure he feels comfortable, so that tomorrow when the situation comes, he's the first person who will raise his hand and give me the result I desire. But if the team player has actually outperformed the expectation, I would allow him to go. I will allow him to go and address the press and the paper to make sure he gets the deserving credit. So that's how you actually build a team environment. And I've started applying that into my workplace, and I'm absolutely proud to say that the results are phenomenal, because that's the kind of empowerment they look for in a leader as well. And I've seen that into team sport. A lot of leaders have actually practiced that. If the team player doesn't perform as per the expectation, the captain of the team goes, or the manager of the team goes and address the media, so that they get a strong message that, look, we have your back secured. Because you did not perform doesn't mean you're not good enough. We back you. The next time when he goes on the field, he makes sure that he gives more than 100%. But if he outperforms on that particular day, he should go and address that particular interaction, because he deserves that credit. And the moment you give that credit to him or her, the performance level obviously gets one notch higher than what we set out as part of the goal and a team strategy.
And again, Nilesh, a beautiful point. Giving credits to the people, it's so important. Never take it your own. And if I again build on it, and again also, like I said, two angles. There's always the functional, the relational. I would say there's also giving credits. You can actually do it on two ways. You can compliment someone, or you can acknowledge someone. And here's the difference. If I compliment someone, I actually compliment someone on the task. I would say, what you have done here is outstanding. Thank you so much for the project plan. You did it on time, thought about all the mitigating actions and so on. So I compliment you on the functional side on what you have done. So I basically see you for what you did. And that's the human doing piece. But next to it, there's also what I would call acknowledgement. And that is actually, I compliment you, I acknowledge you for who you are. I acknowledge you for your qualities. So in this case, I could say, if I look at someone, I could say you are, because that's the formula for acknowledgement. You are, and then you just name the quality you see. So you are honest, you are authentic, you are responsible. And that is more like, I see you not only for what you do, but I see you for who you are. Now, also what you can do, you can actually combine both. So I could compliment you. I could say, thank you so much for, delivering the project plan on time with the mitigating actions. You are trustworthy, you are honest, and you are smart. And then I actually combine the compliment and the acknowledgement. And here's what you will notice. When you compliment someone, it first goes to the head. It feels good. But if you acknowledge someone and you say you are, you've named the quality, I see you for you are, directly goes to the heart. And again, what I truly believe in, if you look at the difference again between groups and teams, teams have learned not just to say, of course you've done it, because that's what you get to pay for. That's why you have a salary. But, they also learned the importance of complimenting, acknowledging each other. And they do it by nature. And they don't just do it because it's on my task list to do. But they do it because they feel it, they sense it, and therefore they just say yes to the other person.
Absolutely. Leadership.
Fantastic, beautiful points. And I'm liking this conversation, which is a great combination of multiple things. I mean, while we're talking about groups, teams, we're also talking about leadership, we're also talking about behaviors, and we're also talking about all those ingredients that put together, and not just in a sporting arena, but also in the corporate world. And as like Nilesh is mentioning, that all that he practiced on the field is also getting implemented, in his drawing board and in his conference rooms out over there. And like Marco exactly mentioned, that the differentiation and the smaller nuances of acknowledging, okay, the head and the heart, and how impactful it would be with smaller choice of words being done. So whether it's done by the leader or by the coach who finally backs the team, regardless of the success or the failures of it.
Well,
Yeah,
you're as good as your team. If you're a leader, you are only as good as your team. If your
yeah,
team performs, you get the desired results.
that's right. That's
And
right.
I would also say the leader, keep in mind, it's a role. And
Absolutely.
while you're the leader, you have that role, you're also a team member. You're also
True.
part of the system. So again, if I coach the team, that's also where I really need to also make a differentiation. Sometimes the team leader would love me to get some one-on-ones and to get some insights. And I tell them, now I'm more than willing to share when we're within the group.
True.
Because you're part of the system, and I'm not going to build a separate bond with you, and we're not going to talk about the others behind their backs, because that's how it feels like. If I'm coaching the team, you're a team member, and I treat you as a team member, although your role is the leader.
True.
Yeah.
True.
So going back to the analogy of sports, okay, because we have a sporting legend with us, okay. Yeah, uh, and then the whole attempt over here, to ladies and gentlemen attending this conference is, uh, how can we learn from different facets, okay, and sports and armed forces are one of those two. As Nilesh mentioned, that they do not have retakes. So the kind of preparation that goes behind at every stage out over there has to be enormous. Maybe in the corporate world, we are blessed with some kind of retakes, okay, or we are at least blessed with having one more quarter to shape up. But mega events like World Cups, okay, or Olympics, uh, it's when it's gone, it's gone. Okay, so Nilesh, I would like to hear from you through your experiences and exposure. What kind of preparation does the coach do, okay, for such kind of a mega event? And maybe from a cricketing context, if we just have to compare a World Cup as against the bilateral series, or let's say Olympics for that matter, if you have to look at any other sport. So your thoughts on that about the preparation of the coach?
I think it's extremely critical because I remember I'm going to use two analogies. One is obviously cricket, and second is hockey, because I'm sure all our audience come from a diverse background. So I'm going to use two analogies. There was a time before the 2011 World Cup. Greg Chappell was the coach of Indian team, and he created some discomfort within the group with the senior players, with juniors. The divide rule strategies were adopted, which is a common term in the corporate practices, and the team was in a complete disappointing phase. And the result of that 2007 World Cup, India could not qualify into the knockout, is testimony to the team conducive environment was completely disturbed. Then came Gary Kirsten. The first thing he actually practiced is giving confidence and comfort to all the senior players that you are going to be my heroes winning that World Cup in 2011. So he separated, empowering them that don't worry about your place in the side is not in a question at all. And then he empowered the youngsters by motivating them. Look, if you have to get into the team, you have to beat the top player. So he made sure that he bring two levels up of the existing level where they're performing, to make sure they are motivated, highly motivated, and challenging their own space. To use the same analogy in hockey, there were some tough calls which were taken by the hockey coach of India before the Olympics started, and the senior players who were part of the team were dropped. So the captain of Indian team was 29-year-old Ramanpreet Singh, who actually led India to a hockey bronze medal. By doing so, he sent out a strong message. The fitness aspect of the preparatory work before the Olympics is extremely critical. And I'm proud to say this information to you because the hockey players just visited about 2 days back to our campus. And one of the points he shared with us was very, very eye-opening for me. Because when you're competing with the European teams or the Australians and the Chinese team, the level of fitness bar they have raised before the tournament start is phenomenal. 5 of the current hockey players the beep test, which is called as your test mechanism for testing your fitnesses, is the 23 is the highest parameter which is set on that beep test. 5 of the hockey player outbid the level of 23 and they perform beyond 23. So look at their conditioning of their fitness standard. So like what Snehal just asked me a question about, what goes behind the scene never comes on in front of people. So the preparation started 3 years back before the Olympic. And when we were talking about him in this particular interaction 2 days back, the goal the hockey captain set is not the Commonwealth game happening now, not the Asian game happening next year, not the World Cup happening year after, but the next Olympic in Paris. So their eyes are set for the next Olympics. So the preparatory work which they have started taking, identifying the players, identifying the group of people who will bring that edge to them for beating the European players and the Australian team by making sure they are managed, maintained, reserved. Before this particular Olympics, Nehal, the Indian team, hockey men's and women's team, were confined for 15 months in a arena in Bangalore. They did not get to meet their families, friends. They all were together, so they actually prepared it. The psychologists were assigned, the team people were assigned with their individual mentors. The access was given, but they were preparing 15 months in isolation before the Olympics started. So I think in a same analogy, what cricket happened for 2011 World Cup, the bilateral series are different, but when it comes to the big event like big stages like World Cup, the preparation should start the moment you finish the previous one because you don't have much time. The 3 years it sound big, but in a tournamental environment, bilateral series, it is very less. If you do not identify the performers or the core group, then you're not going to achieve the excellence, which is the outcome of your championship. So I think identifying the right core group, making them go through the same reins every now and then on a regular basis, critical thinking, crisis management, leadership, solving problem situations, which are common terms in corporate world. In sport, also gets applied in different dimensions, but without having a retake. So the preparation, what you have, is to make sure it's either this side or on this side. It is never that gray area in between where any sportsman you will find getting tangled into that midline. They're either black or white. There are no grays.
Oh, that's great. Marco, from the corporate standpoint,
Yeah.
does this increase a lot of pressure on coaches for them to help organizations achieve Vision 2022, Vision 2025? What can be emulated from this, Marco?
Well, what I would say, I think this is also where you start seeing the difference between the sports world and the business world, because I think in the sports world, 98% of the time you're in the preparation for that one final session where there is no retake. So this is also where you really can work on the team and try out experiments. Where in the business you have to perform day by day by day. And of course, there are retakes, but every day you have to perform. And every day you have to create results, whatever the outcome is that is being requested from you. Now, this is also what I see. So this is what we can learn from that perspective. The business can ask themselves the question. I know 98% of the time is not possible for the preparation and only 2% delivery. But what would happen if we would actually set some more time apart to do some preparation work? And if you look at the sports team, also the higher you get, if you work in the Indian cricket team, you're working with a huge team to support that team. So the bigger the impact, the bigger the support team, and then you have psychologists and fitness persons, and then again the business team could ask themselves the question: so what is our support team? And most of the time there is no support team. Most of the time, at some point when they say, yes, we need support, they get the support team. That's me. I'm the team coach. That's where it starts. So there's also starting to think about that mentality switch that needs to happen. That also means, again, if we look at what can we learn from the sports, it's also important not only to train people on the technical skills to be even better in whatever your role is, but we also need to help them in their personal skills and to really be well well with themselves. So the psychology part, also, the who are you, and be comfortable with yourself, with the results that you achieved, the experiment that you did, where you failed and how you recovered and how you support each other. So again, there's something for us to learn from the business that we can learn from the sports. And that's, if you look at like what I just think, and that's where I would love to work also with people like you, Nilesh, and also here in the Netherlands. I had this session also with Mark Lammers. He used to be the coach for the golden team for the ladies. You also win the Olympics for hockey, for instance. And there's so much we can learn from each other. But that's also where the difference is. And I think there's even a second difference. If you look at the coach perspective, if I'm the coach, if I would be the coach, for instance, for for those who like football, for instance, Ajax here in the Netherlands, is also internationally doing quite well. But as a coach, you're involved with this team for many years, and you also have the same objective. Because as a coach, although I'm apart from the team because they have to perform on the field themselves, I also have the same objective. Are we going to be the champion of the Netherlands? Are we going to win the Champions League? So as a coach, I'm also involved. And there's the risk as a business coach, although I'm involved, I will never be part of the team. I will never be part of the result. And I don't feel like I own that result. You as a team, you own the result. And my responsibility is to find ways how I can support, challenge you as a system in order to be the best of yourselves. And again, I think this is also one of the differentiators looking at the business compared to sports.
Absolutely. Just to add one thought with Marco, I'll tell you my personal experience. When I went and broke into Indian team, there were only two people, coach and a physio. So change is the constant thing for an adaptability. And when I played the last in 2001, we had a trainer, physio, a dietitian, a masseuse who would actually take care of all the back end for it. Even they were actually advising the people to have a right kind of temperature when we are having our food, what to have, what not to have. So these are the differentiator. If you don't adapt, adjust yourself for the change, then you are always going to lag behind into that particular competition as well.
Yeah.
Great. So I love the response that Marco you gave about the whole responsibility part and the accountability part, and the coach takes responsibility to create that kind of an environment, but the ownership also lies on the team to achieve those results and the outcome out over here. Marco, in your book, you've on Connection Quotient, you've mentioned about relationship trust. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you like to share some of your thoughts on that? And how does a coach actually help create an environment of relationship trust?
Yeah. Well, at first we need to start looking at the concept of trust. What is trust? And there's many research has been done. And if I just take one, there's often Stephen M.R. Covey. That's the son of Stephen Covey. Stephen M.R. Covey. He also wrote this book, The Speed of Trust. And he actually says the foundation of trust, there are four key elements, four key ingredients. The first two are, again, more rational, more on the functional side. That is more like make sure that you, as a person, that you show that you have the capabilities and that you create results. Because if you do that, then I might say like, okay, we should work together. Look at your resume. When you apply for a new job, you send a short letter as well as your resume. The resume is actually a list of the competences you hold and the results you created. And therefore, people might find you interesting and they invite you in. So the first part is you build a trust on the functional side. That's the quick way. But if you deepen the trust, his research also says it's more on the relational side, on the EQ side. That is all about, and the two core elements there is about integrity. Are you coming from integrity? Are you trustworthy enough that you also walk your talk? Is your character that you say what you think and that you also do what you said? So it's really about that integrity part as well, the character part. And again, if you start thinking about how do we build trust then within the system, relationship trust, I say make sure that you start understanding each other. Again, other research has shown the more similarities we have It might be similarities in work, but also in personal lives, in hobbies, and so on. The more similarities, the more it creates trust, and the more it creates relationships. So again, how do you create relationships? Is by really be human, show up authentic, just ask questions, speak of your truth, push back where needed, but be respectful. Also understand whatever you say is right, and there's always a different perspective. So in team coaching, I always say, everyone is right, and I believe it. Everyone is right, yet partially. So you see your truth, and although we look at the same object, it might be different. And the simple way to, again, I love simplicity. And the simple way to also showcase that to people is that you draw the number 3 on a paper, and you put it in the center, and you put the people around it, and you ask them. So from your perspective, if you look at that object, what do you see? Some people say that's a 3. Others will people say no, it's not a 3. It's the letter E, or it's the M, or it's the W, and it's still the same object. So again, it shows like we all have our backgrounds, we all have our thoughts, our experiences, and so on. And we look through our own lenses at the same reality, and therefore, based on the backgrounds, we see different realities. Now, can we also acknowledge that we see different realities and say yes to those different realities? And once the team is really starting to think and to act from that perspective, it is a really a big builder for team and for trustworthy relationships.
Great.
And there's much more, but this is where I would like to focus for now.
Sure. And that's a great coincidence, Marco, because even before me asking you a question, which we had received from Srini, who's the director of ITOS Sintel, you ended up answering that question, because his question was, can you please share your perspective, how we can manage the different opinions to turn into a common opinion on the desired outcome? And, a nice serendipity where you gave the classic example of the number 3 and how you build it around how do you acknowledge different perspectives looking at the same thing out over here? Okay. Taking the same aspect a little further and also keeping a tab on the time, we have exact 8 more minutes. I'm just going to shift gears for all of us over here and get into small storytelling aspects. Marco, one important aspect that I witnessed, and Nilesh would know this from very close quarters, is the role of a coach and the timing of that appointment, which is not just to achieve a particular objective or a vision, but there are occasions where crisis management becomes one of the things that comes at the forefront. So, the cricket team of Australia in 2018 went through one of the most disastrous time period where the top players got embroiled into a scandal, the ball tampering scandal. And the world was shocked because Team Australia is a brand in itself as far as cricket is concerned. And they won the Ashes in the same year. And just in one of the bilateral series, certain acts happened and it shook the entire nation. And what happened as a consequence was, okay, obviously, I mean, the captain, the 2 senior players, and Darren Lemon, who was the coach, had to step down. They agreed and they accepted what had happened. And at that moment, one gentleman named Justin Langer was appointed as the coach. Okay, and his first job was to ensure that this brand Cricket Australia doesn't take a beating and looks futuristic in and how exactly it can come up. And for all the cricket fanatics, I would invite you to go and watch that web series called The Test on Amazon. It's amazing the way it has been shot. It gives great perspectives and inroads. That's where, Nilesh, I also wanted to know from you out over here that, how complex does the role of a coach become in such kind of situations?
Extremely. I think one of the challenging parts is, you've just referred the Cricket Australia situation. I would put the similar analogy where the India-Australia recently concluded Test series also falls into the similar part. Those who follow cricket will relate to it as well, where India had lost the first Test match with 36 all out. And then our current captain Virat Kohli decided to come to India for a paternity leave, where 6 to 8 players got injured during the tenure of that Test series. The job of a coach. So when I was talking to Ajinkya Rahane and the coach himself, Ravi Shastri, you will not believe the only player who were left to play was one extra player who they brought in with the entire support staff, because the rest of the guys got injured, and they had actually a few challenges where they had to fly back. And because of this COVID situation, the morale of the team, they had to keep it high. The only way for them, what they had actually addressed a group of players, is that the youngest or the experienced bowling unit in that particular group was only 2 tests old. So it was a completely new team, and they were playing against an established Australian team. And the performance they brought out was only on 2 points. They believed and they had the trust in their ability, which Marco just had an emphasis on. They believed in their ability that yes, they belong at the international stage and they can pull out a surprise to anybody who play against them. And the transparency within the group, because they were accountable for their own good and bad performances. So they started taking that responsibility. They became accountable for the right and the wrong. So that belief, which was instilled by the coach and the captain, was phenomenal to see the outcome of that particular series where India won 2-1. Against all possible odds, you can actually table it for for your discussion. And coming to that crisis management situation and a critical thinking situation, Snail, you just analyzed, this reflects a character. In sport, we always call the most important component is the character within you should reflect into the outcome of the performance. And when you put the same analogy into your workplace, it becomes a cakewalk for the organizations, because if you believe in yourself, if you have the trust within the group, and if you're transparent enough, the outcome is invariably, like Marco said, 9 out of 10 times it's on the right side of the decision. So I think if I have to put that into a right context of analogy, for me, the Justin Langer episode and the Ravi Shastri and Ajinkya Rahane episode, in my opinion, Ravi Shastri Ajinkya Rahane episode stands much higher, because Justin Langer, the players were at fault. They were guilty of those indulging into wrong plays. So they took that responsibility, but the rest of the group responded. But in this situation, things were absolutely fine, but they were pushed into a corner. And the only way up for them, the only way forward was going up, and they responded, and how they won the test series. In the history of Indian test cricket, that's probably rated the best test series India has ever played.
Right. Great. I'm going to take one quick question for Marco. Thanks, Nilesh, for mentioning that. So, Marco, here's a question that we've received from Thomas Common. What are the areas coach should focus during stages of team transformation, performance, and reform stage? Any specific focus areas, Marco?
What are the areas coach should focus during the stage of team transformation, performance, and reform stage? And this is really my short answer. I'm also aware of time. Only 2 minutes left.
That's right.
Yes. So I keep emphasizing the same message, independent on which phase you are. And actually, Niles, what you also said, like it's the mentality piece. If you also look at the research from Google on best performing teams, they've done tremendous research. It's not having the smartest people, the people who can deliver the results, who has all the knowledge. Psychological safety is the number one. So whatever phase you are in, make sure that you have an attitude of psychological safety. That is the foundation. And only then you can also start adding different flavors. So that would be my short answer for now.
And can I just conclude with the extension of what Marco said?
All yours.
Start accepting failures. It results into your better outcome.
Yeah, a failure is just a step forward to a better outcome.
Because as somebody has just mentioned in that, our ex-president of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, beautifully defined the definition of fail is your first attempt in learning.
Fantastic.
That's right. So with this, there are only two things that happen. Either we succeed or we learn.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
There
So
you
great.
go.
Thank you so much, Marco and Nilesh. And thanks, Dr. Arvindan, for coming on time over here. We had a great time chatting about all of this, and I hope it made sense to the rest of the audience. Over to you, Doctor.
Yeah. So So Snehal, you kept the secret of Marco's birthday with us, even with Nilesh and me inside the
Yeah.
room. So we are going to do something for Marco in the end. Okay, we'll keep that as a surprise for him. But still, I want to take 1 or 2 minutes for one important question to Marco. Marco, in a team, uh, my question is how a role modeling of an individual member can play a very important role to the other members, like Sachin in the cricket or the best
Yeah.
player in the cricket. How that role modeling can actually be coach can leverage that.
Again, compliment, acknowledge people,
Yeah,
highlight it. So, also when you talk about team, one of the things that you also create with the team is some sort of team contract. How do we want to work together? And what I do as a team coach, I highlight those elements that I see what is happening within the team as a system or individually. So it's really about underlining what you see. And by highlighting, you can actually create that there are multiple role models. Each and every one is a role model at some point, I hope.
correct. That's a beauty, correct? When the young guy comes, also we have a role model with him and the experienced guy. Nilesh, I have a very important question to you,
Sure.
particularly in the scenario of the India sports team and also the corporate world also. See, when people join, correct, they join as a passionate sports person for the country, correct. So slowly, there are a lot of external factors which comes into play. Example is a branding, or
Yeah.
you have a lot of external factors. So what are the external factors which disturbs the team? What you call as a forming or norming or performing or transforming? What are the factors you came across?
I think there are a couple of components which are extremely critical. Managing your time, justifying the effort you need to put, because your primary role as a part of your KRA is to go out and perform for the team.
Correct.
And you put that as your utmost priority. The rest of the things then you can do into a time management. But the moment you deviate from that sole objective and start focusing on something which is giving you short-term results, you are defocusing from your core objective of the job role which is assigned to you. Once that block gets ticked, rest of the things just follow as your hygiene. But a lot of time people do make a mistake of overstepping into managing all that and balancing it, but it never works. If the priority is set right for you, by if you perform well, you'll get more contracts. If you perform well, you'll get more brands reaching out to you. The way you conduct on the field reflects the hygienes of the brand who want to associate with you. So your representation for that particular sport as a team member or as an individual determines the outcome which happens post that. But the moment you sacrifice that into your compromising position, the outcome always have a variable component in this.
Yeah, my question is slightly towards the coaching part. How does the coach handle that?
See, the coach needs to lay out certain guidelines saying that this is something which is not at all compromise. This time, this particular space is an absolute utmost priority. And if I'm in that coaching chair, one of the things is you be accountable for particular commitment what you give, because like we always say in sport, if the match is supposed to start at 9 o'clock, it has never started at 1 past 9. It has always started at 9. And if you know for a fact, you need to make sure your preparatory work is right, spot on. And that's the job of a coach who is assigned to push the entire group of people to be ready for that particular assigned task.
Correct. So I would like to also end up with the statement of famous Dhoni's always. People have to go and express themselves. They know what they can do. They are all the best people who are selected, and they are accountable for their actions. Correct. So that's what.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much, Snehal. Excellent moderation. I think we didn't have much time, but thank you very much, Snehal, for wonderful moderation. Thank you very much, Nilesh, for sharing all your thoughts and analogies of sports versus business. Thank you very much, Marco, for coming in your birthday and entertaining us with your beautiful speech and experience, fantastic experiences. So what I'm going to do, I want all of you to press two important reaction button. One is the love symbol and there is a cracker symbol is there. Can we all have only Marco in the screen, please, Rahul? We'll have Marco on the screen and we'll have a sort of celebration for Marco for the happy birthday today. And request Rahul to bring Marco on spotlight, please. Yeah, I would request all the audiences to give a full blast of crackers and love symbols. I will also do that. Nilesh, you can also do if you have that.
I'm already doing it. So happy birthday, Marco, once again.
Happy birthday, Marco, once again. And in
Thank
Chennai,
you so much.
in the Chennai language, we say Purnal Vartikal. Okay, so it means that happy birthday to you and success to you. Okay.
Thank
And
you so much.
thank you all very much for joining this session.